We'll start here. Not quite yet.
Yeah, you know, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, two of the same, basically. Okay.
You want to go ahead and hit the bell?
This is, let me just give it a Okay.
I have after me.
Excuse me. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Linda Pratt, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here. Welcome to our service. Unitarian Universalism encourages an open-ended search for meaning in life and a commitment to asking our values to shape our actions. We are a pluralistic religion that draws wisdom from many sources. We welcome all people into our beloved community of whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We welcome especially those worshiping with us for the first time. Guests are welcome to participate in any activities in our community. Welcome team members are wearing green name badges and are ready to answer any questions you may have if you are a visitor or new to this congregation. Pastoral care team members are wearing yellow name badges and are able to talk with you if you have life transitions or need assistance. We invite you downstairs after service for coffee and snacks so that we may get to know each other better. However, today, the coffee hour will be abbreviated because we do have a congregational meeting at 11:15. Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning.
Microphone. Microphone.
They do online.
Mindy, we're going on a road trip. Yes, we are. And the road we're going down is the road less traveled to UU. And so what we're doing, this is our kickoff to the road less traveled to UU. And we're going to have dollars, play dollars, next week. And you are to invite someone, and the many people that you invite come, you put $1 in the road trip fund. And then when we're done, the one who has the most dollars will receive the gift basket that has a bunch of goodies, has a book in there, a towel, sunscreen, everything you would need for a road trip. So I hope you guys win. Oh, the cards. In the basket, the wicker basket, there are, grab a package of cards, and then you would hand those out to people to invite. Thanks.
One more good morning. My name is Ann Harrington. I am a longtime member here, as well as co-chair of this year's pledge drive, among a multitude of other things. So last week I left you in suspense about the pledge drive. And I have some good news, and I have some news that we need to consider. We ended our pledge drive at approximately $157,000. Yay. As of today, we are at $160,480.96. With that comes the seriousness of understanding that with our goal of $225,000 and a minimum of $17,000 a month to be here, we are not quite where we need to be. So we need to become a little more serious about what we're doing. We know that there are still outstanding pledges and affirmations out there to be gotten. Alice and I will be doing that, looking at that this week. But I think the piece that you all need to hear, and thank you for all you've done, is that we want you to be able to have the things here that you want to have. A minister, a new director of religious education, adult RE, stewardship of our property, all of those things that it takes to be here can't be done unless we have what we need to do that. So, if there is any way you can raise your pledge yet again, or if you haven't, please take that into serious consideration. If you can't, that's okay, we understand. If you have not pledged or filled out your affirmation form, that is a necessity. Please, please, please. If you have questions, let me know, ask a board member. John DeGrieve, treasurer, can answer some questions. But we do need to be serious about where we're headed. So please give that some thought, and whatever you can do to help as we continue to push forward in getting the remaining pledges would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
To facilitate some of what Ann has just listed, we're going to be having a congregational conversation, not a meeting, but so where you would make decisions, but a conversation this afternoon for those of you who can attend about where we are with our pledge drive and the options before the congregation, considering things like ministry that may be available and other types of issues for your edification. Also, there is going to be a congregational meeting. The annual meeting is scheduled for May 19th. so a little over a month from now. So please get that on your calendar. So May 19th is the Congregational Annual Meeting, where we will be voting on all of these issues for the coming year. Thank you very much. Bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising, day is a-breaking in my soul, in my soul. It is a wonder and a mystery that our paths have crossed, that in the immensity of all time, in the vastness of all space, we coincide here. I am in awe at the ways in which our lives intersect and intertwine, at the beauty we create when we gather. May our coming together make us more compassionate, more just, more caring, and more loving. May our hearts and minds be open to this offering. I am glad you are here. Let us worship, let us marvel at the miracle of being here right now and the mystery that has brought us together. I invite us all now together to join us in saying our unison chalice lighting printed in the order of service and on the screen. Let us say together, we come from many places, among different paths, bringing different truths. We come with different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people, with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, and bring wholeness to a fractured world. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance of who we are. In this place, may we find others who are much like us and others who are much different. May we tell us, remind us that we too taught by different stories, with many voices, but always one people, working for a world where love creates justice, and justice gives birth to peace. And now I invite you to rise as you're willing and able in body and or in spirit, in singing our opening hymn, number 12, in the gray hymnal and on the screen, O Life That Maketh All Things New. Please join us.
All things new, the booming earth, our thoughts within, our pilgrim feet, wet with thy dew, in gladness hither turn again. From to hell the greeting flows, from eye to eye the signals run, from heart to heart the bright hope glows, the seekers of the light are one. One in the freedom of the truth, one in the joys of paths untrod, one in the soul's perennial youth, one in the larger thought of God. The freer step, the fuller breath, the wide horizon's grander view, the sense of life that knows no death, the life that maketh all things new.
Please remain standing with us as you're willing and able, and join us in our responsive reading, number 557 in our gray hymnal and on the screen, A Common Destiny by David Eaton. We begin. All living substance, all substance of energy, being, and purpose are united and share the same destiny.
All people, those we love and those we know not of, are united and share the same destiny.
Birth to death, we share this unity with the sun, earth,
Our brothers and sisters, strangers,
flowers of the field, snowflakes, volcanoes, and moonbeams.
birth, life, death, unknown, known, unknown.
Our destiny from unknown to unknown.
May we have the faith to accept this mystery and build upon its everlasting truth.
And in this spirit, we greet the holy present in our midst by briefly greeting our neighbors, especially those we do not know.
Now, if the children would like to come forward, I'm not going to say quick story to share, but I got a story to share. It'll be okay. We're not interactive today. I would like to share the story of the grumpy gecko. Grumpy gecko. What did I say? Did I say that? Okay, yes. The grumpy gecko. So, and this has nothing to do with car insurance. So, in a shady glen, the chief of the jungle slept until Chief of the jungle tiger woke up with a snort, and he opened one yellow eye, and he said, "Gecko, what do you want? It is the middle of the night." Gecko says, "I have come to complain." Now, what in the world would a gecko lizard have to complain about? He spent most of his time lazing around, just sleeping and eating, even when he was hungry, all he had to do was flick out that sticky tongue and lick up a mosquito. "So, what is troubling you?" Tiger asked. "Why, it's those fireflies," the gecko said. "All night long, they fly around, flashing their lights in my eyes and keeping me awake, flashing and flickering. Why, I have not slept in days, and it is making me grumpy. You're chief of the jungle. You go and stop them." Tiger stifled a yawn. He said, "You know what? I'll go talk to the fireflies," and he promised the gecko. So the tiger went off to find the fireflies. So he went wading through the fields. The night vibrated with chirps of croaking frogs and the trills of millions of insects. And above the fields, the fireflies flickered and flashed. And the tiger called out, "Fireflies! Gecko says you've been disturbing his sleep, flashing and flickering all night long. Is this true?" And the fireflies responded, "Well, we do flash our lights at night, this is true, but we don't want to disturb anyone. We're just passing Woodpecker's message. We heard him drumming out a warning." Tiger says, "Okay, I see. Well, then I will talk to the woodpecker." So at the edge of the woods, Tiger found Woodpecker drumming against a coconut palm, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. "And Woodpecker," Tiger said, "the fireflies say that you have been rapping and tapping and rapping out and drumming out a warning. Is this true?" And the woodpecker replied, "Well, of course it's true," puffing up his feathers. "I provide a great service. Clearly, my efforts are not appreciated." And he looked down his long beak at Tiger. "Beetle rolls manure all across the path. I warn the jungle animals so that no one steps in it. Without my drumming, who knows what mess you would be in." And the tiger licked his nose thoughtfully and said, "Okay, well, thank you. I'll go talk to Beetle." Now, it was very easy to spot Beetle on the path in the moonlight. His back gleamed like polished metal, and he followed the smell of manure. "Now, what is this?" Tiger asked. "Woodpecker says that you are rolling a filthy mess across all over the place." "Why, yes, I cannot stop," Beetle said, rolling the ball of dung right up to the tiger's paw. "Water buffalo drops piles of it all over the path. If I don't move some of it away, there will be muck everywhere. Now, excuse me." And Tiger lifted his paws, and the beetle bustled past. "Well, okay," Tiger said, suppressing a sigh. "Thank you, Beetle. I guess I will go talk to Buffalo." Now, Tiger found Buffalo asleep in a pool of mud. "Buffalo," Tiger roared, "Beetle says that you have been leaving manure all over the path. Now, is this true?" "Oh, yes, sir," said Buffalo, lowering his head. "I leave manure all over the path. But you see, sir, it is helpful. Sir, the rain washes holes in the path every afternoon. I leave manure only to fill up the holes so that no one trips or falls. If I don't, sir, somebody's going to get hurt." I just think it's funny about being hurt by there not being poo there. "I see," said Tiger. "Well, that's very thoughtful of you, Buffalo." And Tiger twitched his tail, and he began to lose his patience. Well, let's see. It sounds like the rain is the problem. I guess I will go talk to the rain and see what he says. So Tiger set off to the mountain, the highest peak on the island, the home of rain. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed and he climbed some more, and at last his claws scratched the smooth grass of the mountain peak. He looked down in the valley. The sun was rising, and Tiger stared up. The jungle spread out for miles around, flamboyant with flowers, wild orchids, climbing lilies, trumpets of blue violets. He sniffed, he smelt jasmine and all sorts of things. He swiveled his ears, he heard newborn streams tickling and tinkling. And below, on the golden steps of the fields, he could make out the faint flicker of the fireflies. No need to ask rain why it rains, he smiled, and he decided to go back down. As he went down, he watched the water's journey from the mountain to the sea, sustaining every living thing on its path, even the tiniest mosquito. Tiger decided he needed a drink, and he plunged his muzzle into the fresh, clear water, and he drank. Then he began his long journey down to find Gecko. It was dusk by the time Tiger found the lizard. Well, Gecko demanded, did you talk to the fireflies? They're still flashing and flickering, he demanded. Did you tell them to stop? Gecko, said the tiger. He sat down on his haunches and he spoke very slowly. I need you to listen to me carefully. The fireflies flash to pass Woodpecker's warning. Woodpecker warns everybody not to step in the beetle's dung. Beetle clears up the excess dung left by water buffalo. Buffalo leaves his manure on the path to fill the holes made by rain. Rain makes holes in the path that he creates and creates streams, lakes, and puddles. Puddles where mosquitoes live. Oh, said Gecko. And Gecko, what do you eat? Gecko said, I eat mosquitoes. Tiger said, so? Gecko said, so? Tiger said, yes. Gecko said, yes. Tiger said, so if rain stopped raining? Gecko said, yes. And if buffalo stopped filling holes? Uh-huh. And if beetle would stop rolling his dung? And if woodpecker would stop drumming? Yeah, okay. Now if the fireflies stop flashing? Yes, Gecko, yeah. He goes, so? And Gecko says, yeah, I would have nothing to eat. Exactly, said Tiger. So everything in the world is connected. Go live in peace with the fireflies. So Gecko stuck himself upside down underneath the branch of a tree. He closed his eyes and he went to sleep. The fireflies flickered and flashed, and the tiger snored. If the kids would like to join me downstairs, we've got some more activities to do.
The spirit of love around you, everywhere the spirit of love surround you, everywhere you may go.
Yes, we are all interconnected. And we come together here as a community to share the joys, the concerns, the milestones, the sorrows, those things that are precious in our lives. And among us here this week, we have the following has been shared. Do we have anything online first that has been shared with us today? No, okay. Here we have Anne and Diane Harrington share wishing a happy birthday to Hannah, who has her 28th birthday tomorrow. For those of you who've known Hannah, it's often hard to realize just how much people grow up when they grow up in a church. The Board of Trustees would like to thank hugely the property committee and our factorum Jeff and all of the volunteers who helped clean up and beautify our grounds yesterday in the spring cleanup. It was quite an effort. We offer our joys, our concerns, all of those things that are present in our hearts but remain unspoken. We offer these up to the universe and may share them privately with others as we may. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? All will be well, and all will be well. All manner of things will be well. We indeed gather here at a time in a world full of conflict, full of wars and the rumors of wars, of hunger, both far away and near, of hungers of the heart and of the soul and of the body. Spirit of life and spirit of love, spirit of generosity, as we draw near to that quiet, essential side of ourselves, may we open enough to consider the sacred choices that we make each minute, each hour, each day that add up to a lifetime. Let us become aware that here in this place is to be forgiven and to forgive ourselves for any past thoughts and actions. Here in this place to begin again with love. As we are forgiven, let us open our hearts to forgive others, to pray for them, for their well-being and their joy, that they may be lifted from worry and burden into peace and abundance. May we all be blessed with the riches of the Spirit and moment upon moment of peace and serenity. We pray for healing for everyone, for enough for everyone, for peace for everyone. Amen, and blessed be. During the musical meditation, please feel free to come forward to light a candle. And now please join in a moment of silence and meditation, reflection, or prayer as you will. Please join us in our hymn of meditation, number 352, in your gray hymnal, and rise as you're willing and able in body or in spirit. Thank you. Please be seated. Our readings are a collection of quotes from a variety of sources stretching back over 3,000 years up to the present. Starting with quotes from the Hindu scriptures, the Rig Veda, which are close to 3,000 years old. It says, "Truth is one. The wise call it by many names." Symmachus, a Roman philosopher and official in the year 384 of the Common Era, or AD as we refer to it, says, "We gaze at the same stars, the sky covers us all, the same universe encompasses us. What does it matter what practical system we adopt in our search for the truth? Not by one avenue alone can we arrive at so tremendous a secret." In the 1960s, Thomas Merton, a mid-20th century Roman Catholic monastic, mystic, and revolutionary, wrote, "We are already one, but we imagine that we are not. And what we have to recover is our original unity. What we have to be is what we are." And scientist and science educator Neil deGrasse Tyson says the following: "We are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically." So ends our readings. This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community, with membership open to all who are in accordance with our principles, our vision, our mission, our values. And we are a welcoming congregation to people of all sexual orientations, and we unconditionally welcome any and all of you to a community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. This congregation is entirely self-governed by democratic process, and one of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of our financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. You are now invited to participate in the blessing of giving as ushers come among you to accept the gifts of this congregation. We are sharing the undesignated plate offering this Sunday and this month with our Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. A big part of what we are doing as an association, as Unitarian Universalists this year, is to revisit and revise how we articulate our basic beliefs. Some of you have heard talk about the Article 2 process. In fact, if you'd like to know about it, I'm sure Tom over here would tell you all about it. Article 2 is the place in our association's bylaws where all of this articulation occurs, and that's why it's called that. And this is part of our regular process of renewing our faith as a living tradition. So it's not a consequence of any kind of crisis, it's what we do. It helps us to keep from getting dogmatic about how we express our beliefs and hopefully keeps them and us fresh and relevant. We in many congregations this year have been using the proposed values articulated in this process as monthly and weekly themes for our services. And this month's theme is interdependence, and next month is pluralism. Today I'm going to talk about both of them a little bit, and maybe about how some of them relate to each other. I was given a moment ago a very visceral experience of that interdependence when I sat down on the front steps to listen to the message for all ages. When I looked up into the sky up over here and had a better view because I was lower down, I saw a hawk and vultures circling, and hopefully that's not a sign of anything, but, and other large birds, crows, and saw all sorts of activity of interaction going on in the world, even as we're sitting here sharing with each other. Now, since we all tend to use words in different ways, it's important for us to define our terms. Interdependence is a word that we hear a lot about. Often we hear it talked about in issues around the cycles of personal development, whereas children are dependent, and then as teenagers they become independent or try to be, and I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old now, so I'm getting a big master class in that, in independence. And then hopefully as we mature, we move into a stage of interdependence with each other. Interdependence, it is said, both describes a reality, the structure of how things exist in relationship to each other, and by using this understanding that we are able to better influence or shape the nature of the outcomes of these relationships. So it both describes a natural existence, much like Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about how we're all interconnected in some specific ways, but it also talks about how we can pursue those relationships. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of interdependence. If you go online and do a Google search or something for that, you're going to be buried in definitions. And some of them are about business processes, and some of them are about mechanical processes, and some of them are about all sorts of things. I chose to look at the ones around psychology because we're talking about mostly human relationships here, so that's where we're starting. And coming out of a set of psychological papers in the United Kingdom, this is some of what I came up with. It says, one intriguing idea in social psychology is the theory of interdependence, which emphasizes the basic interdependence that exists between people and their social settings. It resembles a complex web in which every strand stands for a different person, and the threads that connect them represent the various ways in which we both have impact and are influenced by one another. As we engage, communicate, and negotiate the complexity of our social lives, this network is dynamic and ever-changing, and this is the reason this theory is so significant. It gives us the ability to affect change for good. You'll have to excuse me, I'm experiencing interdependence right now with my allergies. So the histamines and such are causing my throat to have stuff. So recognizing interdependence and realizing it entails recognizing our ability to shape our social web. So we're not just existing in this state, we also are participants in it, and we have the ability to influence it. By the actions with kindness, compassion, and a sense of shared responsibility, we can make our social environment more encouraging and supportive for everyone. It also clarifies social and societal influences. This theory goes on to explain how our decisions, attitudes, and even our sense of self can be influenced by social norms, expectations, and even minute indications from other people. Our psychological landscape is shaped by the very fabric of our social surroundings. It's not just about direct pressure. It contradicts the idea of the lone wolf. Think about this. In wolf society, a lone wolf is usually a dead wolf. Okay? So, not a good model on which to build a society. Unfortunately, that seems to be where a lot of Western society, especially American society, wants to go. Yet, ironically, lionizes the lone wolf. In the past, psychology frequently concentrated on personal characteristics and inner workings. Interdependence serves as a reminder that humans are social creatures. People and circumstances in our immediate environment have profound impacts on our ideas, our feelings, our behaviors. This is a part of why we have systems theory, family systems theory in particular, is very, very important and deals with this whole issue of the complexity of our interdependent, both intra-social issues and inter-social issues. And interdependence promotes empathy and understanding. It makes us more aware of our interconnectedness and how other people's needs and viewpoints affect us. Increased pro-social conduct, empathy, and collaboration may result from this, and we understand that the societal and social experience as a whole is impacted by our activities as well as ourselves. The theory of interdependence is practical in its application, in addition to being theoretical in its foundation. It can influence how we handle our mental health experiences, social policy, and even dispute resolution. One thread at a time, we may create a stronger, more durable social fabric by accepting our interconnectedness as not only our state of existence, but as an opportunity. In 1993, Beacon Press, our UU publishing house, published a book called Encountering God, The Spiritual Journey from Bozeman to Benares. It was written by a Harvard professor of religion and who was also a Methodist laywoman and a lesbian, Dr. Diana Eck. She laid out her understanding of the manyness and the oneness experience of the holy across religious traditions. And she founded a thing known as the Pluralism Project, which you can find now online at pluralism.org. Also, what to do with these increasing interactions and interconnections between those of differing religious commitments, but also other types of ethnic and social commitments. How do we behave with each other when we don't agree? Now, this is tough enough in a family, let alone across societal boundaries and then across boundaries between societies. Now, this was back in the 1990s, and I was fortunate at that time to be taking classes at the University of Chicago Divinity School when that book came out, and I was able to engage with Dr. Eck several times at conferences and General Assembly when she was a speaker. And she raised, and still raises, as core concern for us about our world's larger engagement with other differing beliefs and cultures, but even more importantly, I feel more immediate interactions of how we interact within our own association, within our UUism and our own theological issues of unity and diversity in our own congregations and in our own communities. In the decade since her book came out, Eck launched her Pluralism Project And it looks not only at the lived reality of religious and cultural diversity in the United States, but how to understand it, engage with it constructively. So she's dealing with the issue of pluralism, but it's also some of these same issues we heard talked about in interdependence. And I would posit that interdependence and pluralism really can't be separated, because in order to engage with pluralism, we really have to focus on it from the perspective of our interdependence. Now, she says that pluralism, especially of religious traditions and cultures, has come to characterize every part of our world today, and I would say the United States in particular is considered the most diverse society, if not the most pluralistic. She says here are 4 points to begin thinking about. She says, first, pluralism is not diversity by itself. You can have diverse societies that are not pluralistic. She says, pluralism is the energetic engagement with diversity. Diversity can and has meant the creation of religious ghettos with little traffic between or among them. Today, religious diversity is a given, but pluralism is not a given. It is an achievement. Mere diversity without real encounter and relationship will yield increasing tensions in our society. One of the great gifts this congregation has is that it has long-standing relationships with the local synagogue here in town, with the mosque, with other Christian communities, and others going back decades. And you have a regular Thanksgiving event with these communities every November. The purpose for having these kinds of relationships on an ongoing basis is that when things hit the fan, the relationships already exist. You have the trust. You have those relationships built already, so that when things go bad or when there is a need, you can rely on each other, and you don't have to try and build those relationships or overcome things that may be difficult. Diana X says, secondly, pluralism is not just tolerance, but active seeking of understanding across the lines of difference. Now, tolerance is essential in a pluralistic society or even just a diverse society, in pretty much any society. Tolerance is necessary as a public virtue, she says, but it does not require Christians and Muslims and Hindus and Jews and Buddhists and ardent secularists and anyone else to actually have relationships with each other and to know anything about each other. Tolerance is too thin a foundation for the world of religious and cultural differences and proximities. We are too close in our neighborliness, and with things like the internet, there is not really much space between us anymore. And tolerance by itself does not remove our ignorance of one another, and it does not remove, in fact, it may even promote stereotypes and half-truths and fears that underlie old patterns of division and violence. So in this world in which we live today, our ignorance is one of which one another will be increasingly costly. She says, third, pluralism is not relativism, but the encounter of diverse commitments. The new paradigm of pluralism, she says, does not require us to leave our identities and our own commitments behind us. For pluralism is the encounter of individual and collective commitments. It means holding our deepest differences, even our religious differences, not in isolation, but in relationship to one another. So one of the great understandings I got from all of this is that there is no neutral central place that we all go and meet, and somehow we're all there in a neutral place. This was one of the great fallacies of 1950s Universalism, which they abandoned the project of, which was to find the universal in religion. to find that which was the same in all religions. And what they ultimately discovered is it looked like a lot of white liberals, because they were the ones looking for it, so that's what they found. We find what we go looking for, usually. And so they realized that that was a fallacy. And what pluralism says is there is no neutral open space that we go to and all encounter each other and we're all the same. We're all different, and we have to encounter each other in our differentness and with our differentness. In fact, the more deeply we are rooted in our community, our home identity, whatever that identity is, the more grounded we are, the less we are likely to be afraid to be pulled off balance by some other. One of the things I am constantly reminded about in this is Dr. King's groundedness in his community allowed him to then engage with the radical other in so many ways, including people who hated him. But he did not lose his grounding because he was grounded in that home community. The more deeply we are grounded in who we are, in our own sense of self, and our own identities, then the more we are able to be freely engaging with others in a way that is not going to let us feel anxious about being sucked up or pulled off center or absorbed or subsumed by some other. And fourth, Diana X says, pluralism is based on dialogue. The language of pluralism is the one of dialogue and encounter. And she says the give and take, the criticism and self-criticism. And self-criticism, is incredibly important and is a central part of being a Unitarian Universalist and a religious liberal. We must be self-critical because we always have to remember that when you're pointing a finger at somebody else, 3 of them are pointing back at you. All right? So we have to be self-critical. She says dialogue means both speaking and listening, and that process reveals both common understanding and real differences. Dialogue does not mean that everyone at the table will agree with one another. Pluralism involves the commitment of being at the table with one's commitment, with our differences. For 9 years, I was called to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbia, South Carolina, and that was my first congregation. And it was a university town, a state capital. This was from 1995 to 2004. And it was the hub, the capital of the Old South. It's where the Articles of Confederacy were drawn up and signed. And it was also a place where we had some very dynamic interfaith organizations, some of them actually supported by the Religious Studies Department at the University of South Carolina. And this is a fairly common behavior, common kind of activity for Unitarian Universalist ministers, because sometimes we are seen as sort of the honest broker in the room, especially between fundamentalist Christians and Muslims and other groups. I've actually sat and done exactly that kind of thing. I've moderated conversations or debates between groups that really, quite frankly, hated each other. And it was a palpable emotion. And we have a good track record showing up for these kinds of things in ways and being seen, and we're usually considered this honest broker, at least as open and curious as a party to larger interfaith conflicts and conversations. Now, frankly, I think some of this really is about the fact they just don't understand what we believe, and they don't want to show their ignorance. But we're polite, and we're too small to be a serious threat to them. So, okay. Now, I found that Diana X's work with pluralism is incredibly important in working with these interfaith organizations, with having these kinds of dialogues with each other. And it has been foundational to a lot of the work that I and many others have done. As Unitarian Universalists, and I'll be talking about this later, about our internal dialogues that we need to be having, But one of the things I've also found is it's very helpful for us as a pluralistic religion. Because Unitarian Universalism is probably the only truly pluralistic religion in the world. Think about that. There are very few others that even come close. And no, the Baha'is are not. They're lovely people, but they're radically inclusivist, but ultimately they think they're right. And I know this because I have family who've been in that community for many years and have worked with Baha'is over the years. So as a community that is radically pluralistic in many of its own expressions internally, we have many of the own same kinds of dynamics going on in our congregations on a micro level that you find in the larger community. And a lot of times the things I find that Unitarian Universalists are really afraid to talk about are two things. They're theology and money. Right? Well, it's hard to have church if you don't talk about theology and money. Right? Because money is about how we express power in the world and how we encounter it and how we understand it. And that's pretty core to ourselves. And hopefully our theology encounters that and encourages it to be generous and to articulate it in some way. People I have found in Unitarian Universalist congregations, unfortunately, there's an ooh factory here, ick factory. People would rather talk about their sex lives than their money or their theology. Right? Okay? Even with their friends. I've done memorial services for people who've been in churches for 40 years or more, and their best friends who've known them for decades. When I'm going to do the research on this person to talk about their theology in their eulogy, and I'll ask their best friends or their families what their theology was, and they have no idea what the person's theology was, because they were very personal. They were private. And I think a lot of this is anxiety, that because some of us bring baggage from other places, that we're going to be kicked out if our theology leaks out somehow. Now, others of us have no fear at all and sometimes overshare. Okay? And that's okay. Might have to rein it in a little bit. But this is important for us to talk about long term in our beliefs, in our own pluralism, and our interconnectedness with each other. So I shared all those quotes at the beginning of the service, before the sermon, and it shows a lot of this pluralism and this interconnectedness, this interdependence that we have. And they are different ways of articulating that go back thousands of years. So these ideas are not new. And one of the things we often have to do in religious communities is remind ourselves of the obvious. Yes, Captain Obvious. So sometimes that's our job. So if you're hearing me say things, you're like, yeah, come on. Sure. Okay. Keep in mind that's my job, is to be Captain Obvious occasionally. So the opportunity for us in all of our unity and our diversity is to practice within our larger communities and in this community what we preach and practice with the other. It's the idea to keep these ideas in mind as we approach all of these things that you are encountering as a congregation in transition, as you're looking at interim ministry, as you're looking at new religious education staffing, as you're looking at all the things that you're facing. What is it that's important? Let us all remember to approach the world from the places of our own particularity. We often flatten out and hide those things because we're afraid of them. We're afraid that we'll be rejected in some way. But we need to share those places, coming from those places of our differences as well as our similarities, because it's in those that we find a grounding of who we are. That when they allow us to engage with each other in ways that will challenge and even change us to be more of who we actually may be as people, and as a congregation, and as a faith, and as a community at large. We are here to engage with each other as we are. Amen, and blessed be. I would ask you now to please join us in our closing hymn, number 311, in your gray hymnal on the screen, and rise as you're willing and able in body or spirit. Let it be a dance. And this is a joyous song, so if you feel like dancing, go ahead and dance. There's a cha-cha. May I have this dance with you, the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. This song we heard, play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like the willow with the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. May I have this dance with you, the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance. The child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry, even as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Morning stars come out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. The rain and share the bed. And around again. Let it be a dance. Be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have a dance. You do it again. Let it be a dance. I told you there was a cha-cha in there. So let us now send our light out into the universe, into the world, as we join in unison in our extinguishing, saying the following. We extinguish this flame.
Without the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go out with hearts and hands and minds renewed. Go out into the world that is waiting for you. Go out to the world to bring your gentle touch to those in pain. Go out to feed and house those in need. Go out to speak truth to those with power. Go out with courage to do the work which calls you. Go now with your passion and faith to change the world. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile upon you and favor you. May the Eternal befriend you and prosper you and all people always. Amen, and blessed be.
We're closing with the hippie national anthem, so if any of you are aging hippies and know the lyrics, you can sing along.
Set on 11? Oh.
One, two. Remember our congregational conversation here. Go get some coffee or whatever you like, and come back here. We'll have a conversation. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
That was great, guys. That was great.
Let's work together.